What's going on, guys? I'm Journey, back with a thoughts video, this time on Final Fantasy 15. This one used to be known as Final Fantasy Versus 13 not too long ago, as it was supposed to be a branch, let's say, from a tree from the Coco the base that was supposed to be originally 13, which we did just kind of get through. So all those branches was this game and another one, Final Fantasy Type Zero, but this one went into a quote unquote a limbo, if you would, into development hell. Best way to describe it. Chances are, probably throughout the process, uh, probably somebody didn't like this, or it became too much for them to handle. Next thing you know, they switched it up, and throughout the process, which was 10 years, new faces come in, probably want something going on for this one, some new, and certain things change, and then you back to limbo again. So this is what this thing came out of. Now, eventually, as since we already got this done, yeah, it did came out, and I'm happy to report that it is a very, very, very good game. Um, I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of we had 13, 13.2, and 13.3 for the course of 10 years, and then you get this, this is a love letter for saying, at least from Square, at least saying, hey, we messed up. Here you go. And that's what this feels like, because 13 was kind of, it was a mess, and it's still a mess. It's just a horrible mess. But this one rectifies that. It's just unfortunate that it's been 10 years. So we are here. Now, you are not this. You are heir to the throne. He is a prince. His king, his father, sends him off on a road trip. Pretty much basically a coming of age sorts for him to go out. Um, Not only just to explore, to have an experience, but he's supposed to go out and get these swords from old kings. There's a bunch of different types of weapons out there in tombs for you to locate and find. But during his journey, there was a peace treaty that was supposed to be intact that got broken. Hey, neighboring quote unquote uh government city yada yada came in, wrecked the spot, killed his pops. Um and it was just, it's bad. So our goal is to acquire as much power as we can, get back and reclaim the throne. That's essentially what this is. And during the during the trip, we got our brothers Gladio, Itness, Prompto. So that's what this is about. Also, homie got a girl. He's supposed to get wed, right? He's supposed to get wed, and that's Lady Luna Freya. But this is where I want to start getting to some other things about the game without trying to spoil things. The story is fine. It's a very simple, very, very simple story, which I appreciate considering the fact that the previous stuff, like I said, 13 was way too complicated for no reason whatsoever. This doesn't necessarily have time travel associated with it like crazy. It's nothing. It's nothing nonsense. It's a very simple story. A man coming of age, going out, go to the going through the world, getting his thing. Things happen. Got to come back, trying to get back what it is. It's a very simple story, right? It's very, very simple. And it's fine. But certain things that you could go ahead and make a connection with, like for instance, uh, not this relationship with Lula Freya, it could have been better thought out and better presented, because of the fact of how certain things happen and the placement that they were prevents you from getting super close to the person or even having developed feelings outside of the simple fact that, hey, this girl, she fine, she thirsty. Outside of that, you don't really have that much of an attachment. She seems like a good girl, but that's all you really kind of get. And you know their relationship, but you don't really get the reason, like the feel, the emotion, until certain events are then done. So I think that kind of shows a lot of stuff that's been here. And it feels like jump cuts all throughout the story. That's what it feels like. There have been times in your adventure where certain party members will leave. They'll go off and go do their own thing. They'll come back and it's like, oh, nothing never happened. And then you then find out that during this whole time, um, they'll show you the story, but it's through DLC. Supposedly, I guess they didn't get finished to get that done, but they pushed the game out anyway. It's not much I can say. So if you want to get the full story of exactly everything that that happens, you got to go out and get the season pass. And this is by far and away the only game I've come into contact with that's a single player game that has two season passes. Or at least they was debating two season passes. And then I know they got down to episode Prompto, episode Ignis, episode Gladio, and then they was going to do episode Ardrin, which they did. And then next thing I know, they cut it. There was supposed to be another maybe episode later, a little afraid. It was just so much. And if you don't know what a jump cut is, a jump cut is like going outside. Like you go outside, you go to get to the store. You gotta go to the store. So you go outside, and then the moment you step outside, you know there's a process to get to. So you got to walk, you got to drive, well, whatever. All that is skipped. You don't see it. Next thing you know, boom, next frame, you're right at the store. That's a jump cut because there's so much information. Anything can happen between that time, and you don't get that. And then it rears its ugly head later into the story where events are happening, uh, stuff is picking up, but it's just so what's going on? I'm not understanding. What is this? And that's one of the biggest issues. It's simple, but they just didn't have either the time to dedicate to actually finishing it, or they got a little bit too big for their britches. Essentially, meaning you had the anime to quote quote understand why the Brotherhood is the way that it is, right? You had the movie to show events that happened previously before stuff that you get into the game to describe. And I've never been a big fan of those things. I'm not a fan of drama CDs and all this other nonsense. Going outside of the source to find your information because most casual people ain't gonna want to, and so this is gonna be their experience. And when you have a situation like that, especially if this is their first and they're coming away confused as I don't know what, it doesn't make it for a good returning factor for when something like Final Fantasy 16 comes out. Just saying. So you gotta think about more than just that. As far as combat is concerned, combat is much more heavily onto the action side. Um, so if you want to know, Kingdom Hearts was kind of around for a while, so you'll slowly start to see is much more action oriented. You can teleport from one area over towards the enemy, and it's called like a warp strike, and it's like the most ridiculous thing. And then you can warp strike out to gain MP out of nowhere, like as long as you find a place of high ground. There's points on the screen that would say a triangle, hold it, a warp strike, get all those HP MP back, and then boom, the warp strike again, start attacking. Wow, wow, wow. Your party members, you can switch it to them. You can switch it to them, but your party members also get there's a tab bar. Tab bar fills up to 3, and they all have skills. Bronto has one thing's my favorite is like a gravity ball. Shoot the ball, enemies pull in. You can then kind of go all in, go ham, but don't go too crazy because they will hit you back. Gladio does have like this attack that kind of hits in a specific area, but it's heavy attack. And what was it? Was it Itness can recall the party in of you regain HP. So there's a lot of I guess you could say strategy with it if you look at it that way, but for the most part, just the action just takes away and blows it out. It's action. There's just no other way I can describe it. The one other thing I noticed though, you don't see spells like Dispels or Bafara or Bar Thunder, like stuff to actually give you physical buffs as far as like elements are concerned. There's still debuffs in the game, but I mean, they still got the same frogs and stuff of that nature, but stone and I haven't seen silence. I believe you can get silence in the game. Um, but it's not in a way how you will consider a regular Final Fantasy. A lot of things also, it just can cook food. Cooking is a big part of the game. You get bonus experience, you get bonus HP, stats, you name it. And depending on who ever likes the food, they'll get an increase, a bonus, all that good stuff. But it doesn't make me feel something necessary. It's not mandatory throughout your playthrough, but it is something to note, especially when you want to go out and farm for levels or fight harder bosses, if you would. There's a lot to do after the game is done, and there is a lot to do during the game. But more than anything, mass majority of the game is traveling. So I would say probably about 40% of this is traveling. You get into a side mission, you travel, go to a location, route the enemy, you get back in your car, you go travel. There is a fast travel option. But one of the biggest things is what this game is about is going out for a road trip. That's essentially what this is. Is this better than 13? Yes, without a doubt, without a question. Um, and for me, honestly, I'm gonna be real. Think this is better than 12, and I know this is better than 10 too. So this is the best Final Fantasy since 10. I will say that. Um, Now, as far as the future of the series is concerned, it's probably gonna be more and more action. I'm not a big fan of that. Really don't like the action thing. it just takes away from the strategy. You don't feel like you get that feeling, the sense of um, if you're coming up across the enemy and you know they specialize in certain things where you can actually work and build towards more so immunities, or even like, hey, I got a power level a little bit. It's fine. You don't get the chance to sit there and make decisions per character and then have that all play out. Like everything is all real time. And when you got AI that you can't necessarily control, at the same time that you're doing, making these selections and stuff, what tends to happen is AI is naturally stupid, because AI will never be able to understand or process the human brain and know what we want the time that we need for them to do it. Something else is going to happen, and that's what typically happens, and it could lead to their deaths. It could be really annoying. Also, as far as combat is concerned, like I said, the combat is for the most part fine, but targeting, it should have been an auto target. Like it should be, I should say not say an auto target, but a toggle target. So essentially, you press your button to lock on, and it should just stay that way. And then you should have a list of things to select, and then press X, let it initiate, be fine there. Because sometimes you have to hold it. Well, I think you have to hold it, but it's unfortunate because when you have a situation where, let's say, you're throwing out spells, if you're not locked on to a specific thing, who knows where it's going to go? And it can even affect your commands that you issue out to your partners. Now, also with magic, you can use items to change its properties and add even more, but there is a timer that comes with you using magic, which is really, really unfortunate. So not only that, but it has some magic. Well, the magic in general has an AOE effect, so it's not only just going to affect the enemy, but it's going to affect you too. So if you have something like the Thundaga, then as soon as you put it down, it's going to hurt everybody. And because AI is what they is, you can't issue a command and say, "Hey, get out the way." They're just going to stand there, and then boom, the lightning comes down. They're like, "Oh!" They're like, "Get out the way!" And then what can you do? What can you do? The music is pretty good too. Um, is it like as good as some of the old ones? It could be debatable, but they have some really nice tunes. Gitiana is a Gitiana as a character that's my heart right there. That's kind of what I'm into. I have a feeling some people be making stuff and they know what a brother be into. But outside of that, it's a really good one. I most definitely recommend it. Did talk about the gameplay, did talk about a little bit of music, and talked about the story. As far as where I would rate this, well, that'd be coming at a separate video. So, man, love to y'all guys. Make sure you take care of yourselves and take care of each other. That's my thoughts on Final Fantasy 15. Be safe out there, y'all. And I'll catch y'all guys in the next one. Take care.